Today on MuscleCar, Blue Collar Buick's backside is getting some attention. Rick gets creative with a hot office item, and Tommy warms up his buffer for some glass rehab, plus an Elko that hauls a lot more than lumber.
Hey, welcome to MuscleCar. Red Sled will be leaving and go to the upholstery shop soon, so we've got to get it wired up and the glass installed. I've already started laying out the harness, but old Rick just won't stay away from the Buick.
Oh, I'd love to give you a hand with the wiring. No, I wouldn't. Besides, we got a Buick over here that needs some taillight lenses, so I'm going to build these before I go give Tommy a hand. Last time, Project Blue Collar Buick got its first body mods when we updated the door handles and chopped a ton of steel out of the front bumper. Next, we started giving the back end its new profile. Now, we were hoping to straighten out this bent rear panel and start building some taillight lenses, but we got to looking at it and it's bent a little worse than we thought. Add in the rust damage and it's just too far gone. It's going to be faster and easier to just chop it off and build a new one. Besides, we'll have some brand new sheet metal to play with. Step one is to find the edge of the sheet metal that needs to be replaced, which means getting all those years of crud out of the way. Matco spot weld cutter will take care of the pinch weld, but a drill bit would work here too. Next, I'm marking off a 1/4 inch inside the factory bend. This will leave a lip to weld the new panel to. The pen mark is just a backup, in case the tape gets pulled off as I'm cutting. After I get the straight cuts with a disc, I'll hit the corners with the air saw, then finish it all off with the air chisel. With the old panel out of the way, I can smooth off the bumps with a flap wheel. All right, we got the old sheet metal chopped out of the way. I got some new pieces here that I'm building. They're pretty basic. Just a flat piece with a 90-degree break. Trying to keep this simple, and this will give us some nice fresh sheet metal, and then we can start finally building our taillights. These panels are pretty flat, with the exception of the centerpiece, which is why I had to make it in 3 sections. The bendle on the bottom edge was made with a brake, but the rest will have to be hand-formed. The pliers are clamped where I need the body line to be, and the hammer forces the rest into shape. A dolly helps out with the final curves. Some gentle positioning, and it's almost there. Just need to trim that a little bit. Looks good. Looks bitchin'. To prep the new metal for welding, a hole punch is the quickest way to go. Don't have one? No problem, just break out the drill. Cleco fasteners will hold it in place while I tack it. The old tail panel has one last purpose in life, and that's to help me position the new taillight openings. I want the new openings to be slightly smaller than the originals, so I'm shrinking the top and sides using 3/4 inch tape as a guide. I know, an air saw may be slow and noisy, but it's the best way to get the precise cut that I need here. I built these frames here out of 1/2-inch square tubing. It's going to serve 3 different purposes. 1, it gives me a mounting surface for the new lenses. 2, it's going to space that lens out so it doesn't look as sunk in as the original taillights did. I hated that. And 3, it's going to give me a way to hold my buckets in place. I pre-built the outer frames, but I saved the center one to show you guys how it was done. It's very important to make sure the frame is square as you weld. Check and recheck as you go, or you may end up with a frame that won't fit your panel. Once it's all melted together, time to drill some holes for the mounting studs. Drilling completely through the frame instead of just one side will help the studs mount straight and give a hole on the backside to plug weld into. Before the studs get welded in place, use the frame and a center punch to mark where the mounting holes in the panel will need to go. I made these studs by cutting the heads off some bolts we had laying around the shop. Make sure the studs are slightly recessed to give a pocket for the welds to fill. I'll drill the holes in my pre-marked panel and see how it fits. Here we go, I got my frames looking pretty nice. Now I know replacing that rear panel took us on a little bit of a detour, but we're finally ready to put some lenses on the back end of this thing. Hey Tommy, want to give me a hand acquiring some materials?
Man, I don't like the way that sounds, but I definitely could use a break from wiring up old red sled. What exactly do you have in mind?
Trust me.
Uh-oh.
Coming up, the guys put their sticky fingers to use for a good cause. And later, a muscle truck that owns the road.
Sometimes building on a budget, that means you have to use all your available resources. No, this isn't automotive lens prism, but the price is right and it'll basically do the exact same thing, diffuse the light. Cover it up with some colored plexiglass, and you'll end up with a taillight lens in any shape you'd ever want. The frames are a little smaller than the actual lenses are going to be. I did this because it's a lot easier to get the final shape right with a piece of plastic than with a piece of metal. With the overall size marked out, it's time to start cutting the actual lens. Now this stuff breaks really easy, so make sure to support the entire piece. I'm just scribing, not cutting all the way through, so I don't have to worry about damaging the table. Beautiful. A die grinder will tweak it into final shape. And with the textured plastic trim to fit, I came back and made duplicates out of flat plexiglass. Now this will be a lot easier to paint, plus it's going to help protect the delicate prism plastic behind it. Now since this is going to be the top layer of our taillights, I'm going to use it to mask the parts off that I don't want to see, namely the frames, by painting a black edge all the way around. Using the trunk lid and frames as a guide, I can lay out the shape. And there you have the shape of the new red area in the lens. The rest of it's going to be all black. Before I headed into the booth, I masked off the area that'll be red, leaving the rest exposed and ready for some black base coat. After several coats and 20 minutes of drying time, the tape comes off and I'm ready for the red. I'm coating the entire lens, black and all, with red candy. Now, true candy is invisible over black, but if you're using over-reduced opaque red to do this, you're going to need to mask off the black first. Spray as many coats as you need to make them as dark as you want, then follow up with 3 coats of clear. Once a last coat of clear set up, I use some windshield urethane to glue the 2 halves of the lenses together, then stick them onto the frames. Now these, along with the modifications we did to the trunk lid and the bumper, what's got this thing looking more like a custom and a lot less like Kojak's old ride. Now the center panel is dark now, but trust me, I did not go through all that trouble just to leave it looking like that. But Tommy needs my hand on red slit, so that'll have to wait for another day.
After the break, there's no mistaking this big block beast for just any old Elko. Today's Flashback, a 1968 El Camino SS.
It's the age-old question, car or truck?
Well, we just call it a crud.
Make that a muscle truck. The SS 396 turned this 68 El Camino into one hairy hauler. The name means the road, and this baby owns it.
Yeah, and if you saw it coming up in your rearview mirror, you might think a Malibu was on your tail. That's because they've got the exact same front end. Chevy took its Malibu wagon and ripped off the back roof section.
This one's in primo condition, which is hard to find since only about 5,000 were made to begin with. So getting behind the wheel of one is truly taking the road less traveled.
The El Camino debuted way back in 1959 on the full-size Impala platform as Chevy's answer to the Ranchero. Ford responded in 1960 with the shrunk-down Falcon Ranchero, and it literally knocked the El Camino off the market for 3 years.
In '64, it returned as part of the brand new mid-size Chevelle line and was a huge hit, outselling the Ranchero nearly 2-to-1.
It got the Super Sport treatment for the first time in '68. The performance hood, blacked out grille and tailgate, and badges all over the place signaled it could do a lot more than just haul lumber.
Plus, you had your choice of 3 versions of the 396 Big Block that went all the way up to 375 horsepower. It could say adios to the Fairlane or Roadrunner any day.
It also came with a 12-volt rear end, but for some reason you couldn't get heavy-duty suspension like on the Malibu SS. This was the only year the El Camino SS 396 was its own model, so you can easily identify a true one by its VIN. The third number should be an 8.
68 also brought some Coke bottle style curves to the car, with more rounded side panels and a raked front overhang. It was longer too by about 10 inches, most of which showed up in the truck bed.
Inside, it's a cozy fit with just enough room behind the seats for a spare tire and a hiding spot for your gear. This one doesn't have the 4-speed, but that's actually a good thing. The shift linkage was pretty lousy that year. A rare option was the unusual roller tack, which is just as hard to read now as it was back then.
The Super Sport package continued on the El Camino for almost 20 years until the road finally came to an end in 1987.
Today, the SS El Camino is often overlooked in the history books. Whatever you call it, car, truck, or cruck, this is one serious piece of muscle.
Coming up, got scratches in your glass? Ow! Tommy shows you the right way to rub one out. You're watching MuscleCar. For a DVD copy of this episode, just go to PowerBlockTV.com and order your copy for just $5.95 plus shipping and handling. Start your own MuscleCar collection, delivered right to your door from the Power Block.
Hey, welcome back. While Rick's been chopping away at the taillights on the Buick, I've just about got the wiring installed on Red Sled. I've done all I can do for now, so I thought I'd get the glass installed before the interior goes in it. We're planning on putting new glass in, but no one makes this huge back glass, so we're gonna have to reuse it. The problem is, it doesn't look so great. It's a 50-year-old piece, so it's well worn and has a few scratches, but we can fix it with the right materials.
Build on a budget. MuscleCar projects that save you time and money.
Many imperfections can be sanded and polished out, like wiper scrapes, scratches, and haze. Eastwood's glass polishing kit can save you some serious dough if you're trying to decide whether to replace or refurbish a rare piece of glass like ours. I've got the glass nice and clean, so I'm ready to tackle the scratch. If your fingernail catches on it, it's too deep for the polish and will need sanding. I'm marking the scratch on the underside of the glass so I can keep track of where it is. Starting with the coarsest of Eastwood's 3-disc, spray on some water and use a DA to start smoothing out the area of the scratch. Once you can't fill it anymore with your fingernail, move on to the medium disc, then finish it with the fine disc. Make sure to keep the area nice and wet with a spray bottle as you work, or you could damage the glass. Once the scratch is completely gone, use the Rhodite compound and buffing attachment to polish out the surface of the entire window. Fine scratches and haze don't need to be sanded at all. They can be buffed out along with the rest of the glass. That should do it. Let's see what we got. Get this compound off. Boy, I don't think it's bad at all. Shoot, no. Man, that looks good. Once all the scratches are sanded out, go back over the whole thing with the Rhodite compound and polish it till it looks, well, like glass. This is a huge back glass, so I've got a lot more polishing to do. But we're all out of time, so until next week, y'all keep it between the ditches.